Go ahead.
Yeah, so we presented a couple weeks ago on kind of a lot of the planning that we did. And I think that was on week 5. And so 5 weeks later, we started coding and we were able to create some pretty cool stuff. So I think hopefully Dennis can share a screen and we can kind of show you what we did. So we started off I'm not seeing.
You can stop sharing. I think I might have to, but you guys can start.
Yeah. So there we go. All right. So we started off. Our goal was split into 2 parts. We would have a backend in Java that would parse Java files for various method calls, and we create our own kind of directory tree and where these different calls were happening. We would serialize that into JSON, and then in our front end, in our VS Code extension, read in that JSON and then visualize it with various SVGs. So we came super close to having this work so smoothly, but sadly, everything does not just work. We were able to generate the JSON in our backend in our readable format, but due to some weird errors with how the source code was written to strings, we had some troubles with that. So we're just going to kind of show you a basic mock of what we did and kind of how it visualizes it. So currently in the JSON, we have it broken up into the different files or the different boxes that need to be visualized with the path name and the various source. And as I mentioned before, writing it to a string was kind of weird. So some of the lines got deleted. So it made debugging kind of a pain, but that is for future features and fixes. Then from there, we have an object array of arrows. These arrows start from a location, and they start from a file and at some position, and then they point to some other file that has some other position. And then the goal is, with these line numbers, to draw lines between these SVG squares when we draw them. So through some front-end magic that I know nothing about, Dennis was able to get all this working and fairly smoothly. And so, yeah, I guess we can run it and see how it goes. And yeah. Now, if you can't tell, we have definitely rehearsed this demo and are definitely not just winging it, but that is completely fine.
I feel like my VS Code is just broken. Yeah, I can't stop this. Okay, let's close it and restart.
Yeah, so I guess as this is loading, I would like to say that over the past 10 weeks, just kind of seeing this project grow from like an initial idea and into the planning, and then also kind of learning about all these different technologies has been a super cool experience. That is a great way to spend a lot of my Saturdays of just like learning more about this kind of like project lifecycle and learning more about a bunch of different technologies. So it's been super cool.
Don't need this right now. Is it going? Oh, it's building. Okay, there we go. Nice. So yeah, from here, assuming we have this extension installed, you can press Command-Shift-P. Opens up this little command palette window, and we registered a command called Project Atlas Open Atlas, and that will read in your current directory, parse everything, build like the JSON representation, and then convert it to SVG. And the front end is definitely still a work in progress. Not the final look we want to go for, but if we do that, we should see that the SVGs get generated with all the files. And so some other front end magic that I worked on is, so if you click and drag, you can move around and see all the files. Right now, there's just, they're kind of just follow along this line because we don't have a clever way of grouping them yet. But yeah, you can drag, you can zoom in and out, some amount, pretty out. You can also move around by just using like 2 fingers and gestures, which was nice to implement. And then you can pan around over these boxes, but as soon as you move inside of a box and you scroll, it scrolls in that box. But then to continue panning, you go outside the box and you can move around that way without having to like physically move your mouse around. And yeah, so there's a little thing that down here that keeps track of your coordinates. We see line by line these files. And the unfortunate thing that we couldn't get working are the actual displaying the arrows, because there's some kind of issue with the white space. For some reason, white space isn't always getting preserved, as you can see here. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So arrows don't fully work. However, if I do a little bit of hacking around on camera here, so I could bring these arrows back, but I have to use a different file. So we are using mocks right now because another issue we ran into is that we couldn't figure out how to get it to generate the JSON in the correct like directory. So we just generate it manually. We can run a command. It does generate it. We do have like all the JSON generation working. Like if I this command, if I run it right now, you'll see it should work. We'll start building, do a bunch of things, print some random things, and then we see this atlas.json, which is the thing that was just displayed. I promise this was just generated and not already here. But yeah, so it does work. There's just a few connection issues. But yeah, so going back here, I use a different mock, which has different files and different code in it. And I rerun this and I try to generate the JSON again, or the SVGs. Damn it, what happened?
So one thing I found that is super cool about this is that the file, those SVG boxes you saw and all the contents in that JSON, it's all generated dynamically just by inputting into directory paths. And and through the magic of a couple libraries, just everything is dynamic, and it's super cool, in my opinion. I might be a little biased, but I think it's awesome.
I think I figured it out. It should be where my this should fix it. There we go. Oh man. Okay, so these backgrounds are in the way, but there is an arrow pointing from, I think it was from line. It should be, yeah, from line 1 to line 3. And if I also like change these values kind of right now, and so if I go to like line 3 to line 1, we included this refresh atlas button, so you don't have to actually like restart the extension every time you like update your code or something. And if that didn't work.
I think you commented a few things out earlier when we were debugging.
I did, you're right, I did.
But overall, this is what we've been working on for the past 10 weeks. And definitely this is like, I think, still a really good foundation to continue to build off of. Hopefully, if the rest of the team is up for it.
I think
Yeah.
this, I want to take that line and just, okay, I will need to like restart the extension to do this, but that should work. Yep. Okay. Let's restart that. Put a mock here. Where is it? Let's try that again. Okay, so the arrow did change. It kind of see it's like going from line 5 to line 1, and then if I, or I guess it was line 3 to line 1, and then if I change this to 1 to 1, I mean, let's do 1 to 2, save, go back here, refresh Atlas. Yeah, it moved. Yeah, so you could see it is this refresh Atlas button does regenerate everything. And yeah, so there's that scrolling. I think that's all the front end features we have for now. And yeah, that's the extension. Yeah.
I guess any thoughts, any questions? We'd be happy to answer them. Cool. I guess we can pass it off then to the Trevor group who's going next.
Okay, we'll stop share.
All right, I think up next is the Places team, which is group 2.
Yep. So I guess before I try to pull this up, quick recap of the project concept was we're basically building this sort of short form blogging platform based around a map interface where people write stories connected to specific locations on a map, and other people sort of interact with these posts through this map. So I need to screen share from my phone here. Oops. Let me. Okay, sweet. Yeah, so I guess we sort of built this with React Native. So this is sort of that main map interface that I was talking about, and then specific locations that have sort of user posts connected to them will show up on the map. And then there is essentially a location-specific feed connected to each one of these locations. That's a pin on the map. So this would be sort of content from potentially a few different users talking about, we're not really sure yet, sort of pretty open-ended, but sort of the overall goal is to sort of highlight sort of places around you that you might not necessarily recognize as like a local landmark, but other people might have like significant experiences tied to that place, even if it's like a relatively innocuous like park or sort of street corner that walking by you probably might not recognize or sort of think much about. So sort of within that idea of like sort of giving people this sort of different perspective on sort of the built environment around them, we also wanted to incorporate this sort of filtering functionality where I think a lot of sort of blogs, social media platforms like will focus user experience on people that you're following, or potentially have sort of explore features based around like globally popular stuff. And I think we kind of wanted to do something that was a bit different and like gave people sort of different perspectives to approach the content that were outside of those two very common ones. So I guess our idea was that you would be able to follow people and sort of have places that they've written stories about show up on your map. But you'd also be able to highlight specific locations that have stories connected to them that were written by people that live there. So this could be an interesting tool if you're traveling somewhere and sort of maybe people you follow haven't been to this place before and you want to see like some stuff that's been written by people who live in that area. And then sort of this third filter here was this idea that people from, I guess, different backgrounds may interact or sort of write stories in a different format based on where they're from. So this sort of third filter was going off this idea that if I'm from San Francisco and I'm visiting Boston, it might be interesting to see places in Boston that have stories written about them that are written by people from San Francisco. And like how would someone from San Francisco potentially highlight different places in the city than people who actually live there? So it's sort of a tool for exploring sort of random locations around you. So I guess that's sort of the core map interface. The app is only about 4 screens right now, but there's also a simple profile page. Nothing too exciting going on here. In the main blank space below the sort of written content, we want to eventually integrate like a personal map for that person. So you get a little map maybe centered around where they live that sort of highlights locations that they have specifically written places about. And then I guess we saw before, all of these different pins end up right now take you to the same like location specific feed. And then I guess to add or contribute your own stuff to the app, you can either write a new story about an existing place or potentially add a new pin altogether to the map. And I guess all of the like locations and content that you see right now is just some static JSON files. So we haven't really implemented any backend functionality for this. We thought about it. But getting React Native up and running and sort of establishing a good workflow for the group definitely took a little while. And I guess, yeah, the code base is definitely still a bit rough. We all had never used React Native before this project, but it was pretty awesome experience. I guess I've talked a lot. So June, I don't know if you want to add anything that I missed here or any new stuff about the process.
Yeah, he pretty much covered it a lot, like really well. And yeah, like for the profile page, it's like you would have your own page, right? And then the map below it, centered around where you're from. And what we wanted to do was have other users on this app also have a profile page similar to this. And like one thing that we wanted to focus on, like in addition, that would make our app special is that we kind of wanted to take away like what we saw as like pressures of social media. So the only number based thing we would focus on are the places and cities you've been to. And instead of like how many followers a person has, how many posts they've made. And so like even if you like click the follow button on someone, for example, like you wouldn't see like, oh, they have this many followers or whatever. Like it would just be like you choosing to like keep up with whatever they decide to post on where they've been and stuff like that. And yeah, that is pretty much what we wanted to base this on.
So yeah, I think that's the spiel. I guess if you have any questions, we can ask about that. I think like through this process, we sort of got a good start that I think we'll be interested to sort of keep working on just for fun in the future. So we definitely set some pretty ambitious goals at the start of the program, but I think it's cool to have a live demo at the end of it. So yeah, I think we can turn it over to the next group.
Hello. Oh, can you hear me? Wait, can you guys hear me? Everything good? Can't tell.
Yeah.
Oh, they can hear? Okay. Hi, guys. So we are Project Luma. Basically, so actually, fun fact, we started at like week 6 of Oasis because of I I was in a group, but then we had to switch groups. So I have this new team of amazing people. We're all freshmen in computer science, and we were all really like music. So we decided that we would work and make a website that would connect Northeastern students on campus who are interested in music. So songwriters can find other singers if they need singers. Producers can find like instrumentalists and just create like a stronger connection of musicians on campus. And so if I share my screen, you can see. So these are us. You can't see us because we're wearing masks right now, but I'm Jamie. The favorite thing about this project for me was just getting a head start, or not a head start, but just getting experience because, fun fact, also none of us have any experience in web design, and so these past 4 weeks have been pretty like jumping off a cliff. It's been wild. So, and the portion of this project that I was focusing more on was the connections page, and we have a total of 5 pages, and there are 5 of us. I'm gonna go over to the next person in our group, so they could talk about themselves. Rachel, do you just want to talk?
Yeah. My name is Rachel. I was working on Hello, my name is Rachel, and I was working on the welcome and login pages for the website, and it was hard because it's my first experience in like web development and everything, but it was fun like getting to learn a lot of new things and coming up with some end product that's still incomplete, but I'm excited to work more on it in the future. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Spencer. Sorry, I don't have a webcam, but yeah, I was working on our main homepage. It was pretty difficult considering, you know, having classes and tests and exams and trying to learn
So we just
React.
started coding this past week. So like
Yeah, like we are pretty late in the process, but you know, it was a great experience and definitely going to keep working on this even after this semester ends and yeah, into the next semester.
Hi, I'm Trevor. I worked on the login and like sign up page, and I think that my favorite part about this project was like, as Jamie said, um, we didn't really have much experience coming in, and I actually didn't have like any coding experience at all coming into college. So this has really been like a great learning experience, and I think it's really fun to, run into problems when you're coding, and then like, spend hours trying to figure it out, and when you finally get it, it's just that feeling that's can't really be replaced. I don't know.
Hello everyone, I'm Malin. Same with everyone else. I'm kind of in the same boat where we're all just starting fresh, and I don't know, it was oh, really overwhelming, but I like the experience to try and dip my toes in like some web development and have like something tangible as an end product, even though we're still, we still have a lot of work to do on the website. It was a good experience.
Okay, so can you guys hear me? Okay, so we'll spend the last like 3 minutes just talking about a project. Also, shout out to Ashlyn for being an amazing mentor. But I'm gonna continue sharing my screen, and so this is what our schedule looks like. So this is like our schedule for the past 4 weeks. Our first week was just designing the pages, and then our second week was a crash course into what the heck was React. And our week 3, we had a discrete final, so we saved that for studying. And then just this last week, we started coding, and we didn't do any back end because we only had time to watch front end tutorials and walk through Gatsby and other tutorials. So that's that. Design stage, I'm actually super proud of everyone here because for the first week, we spent like designing the pages and making sure we knew all the functionality of each page. For example, this was our login page, and Rachel and Mal, like they both had iPads that we sketched it out on, so it was really cool that they could use that to like sketch things out. So that would hypothetically be our official login page. We would have a connections page where you would mark which notable musicians you would really like. We had a discover page where you could filter out like a side and see like what kind of people you were looking for and see new feed. We had a profile page which would hypothetically include everything you need, including all your personal information that you need and contact info. And we had a welcome page. So that was like the basics for our design, and that took us like a week just to talk about. And so this past week we've been working on actually doing the web, actually coding it. And so one example is actually Rachel. We all been working on a web page, and we were trying to put it into GitHub. We're having trouble with pushing it, but Rachel's going to share her screen and kind of show you what she's been working on. So I was in charge of making the welcome page, so this is like the layout that I kind of came up with based off of the design we made. And then I made like the files for the other pages, but each of our members are gonna just work on that for the coming semester, I'm guessing. And this would be the login page with like the 2 boxes you saw from before. And then when the person logs in, they reach the home page. I'm also working on making the toolbar, and then this is the symbol for the connections page. And if you press it, you get there. And this is the profile page. And if you press back the logo, you get back to the home page. Yeah. And then this is Trevor's page
All right, so just again, I worked on the login page, and this was kind of like our design concept, I guess. And then this is like sort of what I ended up with. So there's like text boxes, and you can type in whatever, and like a signed in button, and like there's like links and stuff, but it's mostly just like front end stuff, and like these things just link to like Google for now. It's not really like a sign in, but yeah, that's sort of where I got.
Anyway, so that's so we're all working on it. We're all going at our own pace right now, but we're really excited, and we're hoping to continue. But it's been a really good experience. So thank you, Olivia, and thank you, Ashlyn.
Thanks, guys. We have one more group, Project Nira, that will be presenting. So yeah, feel free to share your screen.
Sure. Yeah, I'll share. Give me one moment. Yeah, we just have a quick PowerPoint. All right, can you guys, oops. There, okay. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
All right, cool. Nav, want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So our group is me, Sam, Austin, and Alan, and we worked on Nira. So essentially the idea is that depression's a really tough mental disorder, and a lot of people will experience it at some point in their lives, and a lot of people have it, you know, for their whole life essentially. And just based on the field of psychology and how that field has progressed so far, a lot of mental disorders are not seen with the biological lens that they should be seen with, and as a result, this whole field of psychology has fallen back compared to other scientific fields like, you know, biology or chemistry that are very strict with the scientific method. And as a result, the stigma around mental disorders has been kind of inhibited. Like some people think that you have a mental disorder, you know, you need to just like run more, exercise more, but oftentimes that's not the case. And so in terms of prescribing treatments, doctors are really good at diagnosing depression, but treatments, it's kind of an iffy situation. There's just so many biological factors with essentially every single neurotransmitter involved in various parts of the brain. And so they have an idea, but when it comes down to prescribing medication, doctors will kind of do a check and guess type thing where, or guess and check, I mean, where they'll give something. If it doesn't work after a couple months, they'll take them off it, try it again. And then there are certain patients that go their whole lives, no treatment works. And it's just, you know, a bad situation. But I think with biological lens and with, you know, the advent of things like machine learning, which is what we use, people will be able to, doctors with this technology will be able to make better decisions about how to prescribe based on these, you know, biological factors. So our project was using machine learning. We were to find patterns in neuroimages of patients with depression pre and post treatment, and then by finding patterns, we'll be able to help doctors prescribe a patient a certain treatment depending on their particular neurobiology. So it takes, you know, there's a few steps in this. The first step would be to gather data, because without the data, machine learning does nothing. So we were, you know, perusing a bunch of different, our plan was to, you know, do some research, find some peer-reviewed articles, and then check some open source data repositories, see if we can find some interesting data. And then the second step is to explore different machine learning methods, different sorts of models, different sort of statistical analysis that are state of the art in the field, try them, experiment, see what works, see what we can learn, and see how you know, technology can actually aid this process. And then finally build a predictor for what treatments would be most effective based on the pre-treatment data of the brain, or pre-treatment brain data of a patient, so that we can have a guess as to how effective a treatment would be before they actually take it.
Hi guys, I'm Alan. So I'm gonna talk about the steps we took. And first we had to do data collection in order to find a valid data for us to use to train the model. And so we used different open source neuroimaging repositories, such as Open Neuro, Healthy Brain Network, Connectum Coordination Facility, and Open ICP SR. But we found that there's a source in Open Neuro that has a pretty promising data. It is research that deals with 51 subjects with mild depression, also like 21 healthy controls. So we can have the depression group and the healthy groups to make a comparison when we're building the pipeline. And it consists of over like 100 different scans per patient. So it's like a pretty good data to start with. We also reached out to the researcher to figure out depression scores, because in the data that he provided, there's like, it's missing the depression score. So we can't really do a train on the data. So that's what we did for data collection. And then the next step, we had to do data processing, and we tried two different libraries. The first one is fMRI Prep. It's basically a data pre-processing library that deals with fMRI images. But the problem with that is that it creates too much like unnecessary steps for us to take, and we kind of have to build from scratch to like build a model for training. So instead we turn to NILearn, which is a Python library that's already built for doing neural imaging like processing. So it takes in Nifty files, which is just like a bunch of folders with like organized data for fMRI images. And we use NILearn to extract these 4D images, which are like a time series of different 3D images of the brain. And then we did a training on that data. Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Austin, and I'll be talking to you about the first attempt of what we did after we managed to collect all the data and we pre-process the data. So the first attempt was we tried to use a simple linear regression model. We used a library called NumPy, which is a very popular statistical library that deals with a lot of these like statistical analysis of certain types of data. We pretty much used it to unravel these 4D matrices into a bunch of like million, like really large arrays. And then we used an algorithm called the principal components analysis, which is pretty much an algorithm that takes in an element, which has around 15 million different elements. And it takes and transforms and searches directions for which the variance is the highest. And it produces a new mapping sort of based on that. And then, so to continue, unfortunately, we weren't actually able to get a lot of data, although we did reach out to the researcher and he did respond to us. It was only just this one small data set, and we weren't able to get enough data to pretty much do more sophisticated analysis. So we tried regularization, which pretty much minimizes the weights and simplifies it for the model. And we also ended up getting a negative R-squared value, which is not very good. It's kind of bad due to the fact that our data set was just so small and it was really hard to pretty much find the analysis. But in the future, we hope to get more data and be able to make more clear analysis of this data.
Yeah, and hey guys, I'm Sam. I'm actually the mentor of this group, but I consider myself more or less of a group member at this point. It's been a great pleasure working with these guys, and I love this idea. So, and I'll be talking about our second attempt, which is forthcoming, which is applying a convolutional neural network model to this data. So, basically the whole point of machine learning is, you got to have data in order to draw any reasonable conclusion. So first step is to, really just push and drive for getting more, as much as data as we can to feed into these models. And so once we have that, we'll approach it by training a CNN, convolutional neural network. And so this is a bit different than what we did before with regression, because before with regression, right, we had to do the raveling step where we would unwrap the 4D matrices into, 31 million dimensional 31 million element arrays. And so that you kind of lose some of the internal structure of the data with that method. So convolutional neural network will allow us to input, this 4D matrix directly. And so we can preserve that internal structure and let the model take advantage of it. And so we can take advantage of it through different configurations of layers. So there's like Con4D, max pooling. I won't go too deep into what these mean right now, but I definitely encourage you guys, if you're interested, to look it up. Google has great resources on this stuff. And then finally, if the model performs well, then there's likely some interesting information hidden inside of the kernels of the model. So like, for example, people have shown that like, if you train like a classifier, like a convolutional neural network classifier to like identify cat images versus no cat images, let's say, then you can actually peer inside of the network and there will be like kernels, they're called like kernels that do convolutions on the image that, identify specific features that are cat-like. So like, for example, whiskers or like the nose shape. So like we could derive similar insights potentially from our network if the training succeeds. Oops. And then next steps, continue testing various models and layering patterns for our network. And then when we're satisfied with the model, that's when we start reaching out to clinicians and researchers to gauge interest in the project and see if this is something that they'd be willing to contribute to or something that they'd be interested in using. And then, make a front end for it. So like you build this out into a robust tool for people to go on and, submit images and maybe like see some sort of analysis. I think there's a lot of room for, where we could take this. And then finally, gather more data, of course, to improve model usability and robustness. All right, so that's pretty much our project. And then I'll also leave you guys with this. So this is the book that I had read, and it helped me a lot to learn a lot of the concepts that we had used in this project. And so, I recommended it to my group. And so I would highly recommend you guys check this book out if you're interested in an introduction to machine learning with Python. All right, so that's that. Questions, comments?
You can also leave comments for the group in the chat. Thank you so much for presenting Project Nira, and thank you everyone who presented. These were awesome. I think it was such a treat getting to see all the work that you guys have done this semester. Just a taste of everything, all the projects that have gone on in Oasis. So I'll pass it back to Ryan. Or Rune too.
Wait, yeah, I thought you said my name, but I didn't 100% hear. Yeah, so thank you everyone so much for being a part of the Oasis Accelerator for this semester. I know I've had a great time like getting to know my groups and seeing like the incredible work that they're doing. I mean, like honestly, so Atlas is one of my groups. Atlas like is doing stuff that I don't even know how to do at this point. Like the whole VS Code extension thing is like totally beyond my sphere of domain knowledge. So I've just really enjoyed getting to see groups kind of like learning new things, taking their knowledge beyond where it was at the beginning of the semester, and improving as programmers in the process while making some pretty cool things. Both my groups, I think, are making projects that I'm really impressed with. So yeah, for me, I mean, it's been an amazing experience. And I'm really glad that all of you have been along for the ride. Arun, do you have other stuff to say?
Yeah, just echoing your comments. I think like especially seeing all the new people who like had barely coded before, or like it's their first like outside of like classes programming project. It's been amazing to see like what you guys have come up with, like learning a bunch of new technologies along the way. This is just a start, so I can't wait to see what you guys like continue with your projects or like the next project you guys work on. Just super excited to see what this group of people will do.